Oh, steady, Caravan Film Crews. I'd like to talk to you guys today about pricing, specifically overpricing, which is really only relevant if you haven't priced yourself out of a bid. If you're going after jobs and you're sending out quotes and you're overpricing yourself, um, you're not going to get the job, and that's just what it is. And not to say that giving giving somebody a higher price than what they're being quoted is overpricing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, you decided to determine your hourly rate or your day rate or whatever it is, based upon what you think you should get paid instead of what you think would be not only fair in terms of your skill level and the amount of work that needs done, but fair also in terms of over or disproportionately providing value to your client, like Gary V says. And when you do that, when you overprice yourself, you kind of seal off that conversation. But when you overprice yourself according to your skill level and you get the job, like it could totally be a win-win, like 100%. Like, some cases it's going to work out to where you did overprice yourself and people are happy because maybe they were working with somebody who was priced higher than you and did lesser quality, and so they found you weren't too far off from what they were used to paying. You were maybe a little bit less, and you did better quality than the people who they were working with before. But in the grand scheme of quality, the spectrum of quality that exists, you might be under or way well below that price point. And if that's the case, you got to be careful, because you can really come off as somebody that's very greedy, or you come off as somebody that may have took advantage of the situation. For example, I was working for a marketing company, and we picked up a security company that needed to get several commercials done, and it was a 3-day production, and their budget was maybe like 30-40 grand. And at the time, in-house, we were using a D7000, which isn't a bad camera, but it is like a prosumer level camera. And immediately when they told me that this is what we were going to do, they were super hyped that they got the gig, they landed the job, 40 grand for video production. But I'm the head of the video department, and I wasn't brought in on the conversation early enough, and so managing the expectations of not only what this is going to cost, but what the client is going to expect was something that just wasn't handled correctly. And there's really nobody who could handle it correctly except somebody who is doing the video production side of it. And when they came to me with this info, immediately I understood that, okay, yeah, we landed the gig for 40 grand, but they got to get at least, at the minimum, 40 grand worth of production. And I know that my D7000, it's not a bad camera, it's a great camera. We can use it for a ton of stuff, but for what they want to do, it's not going to cut it. I just know that it's not going to cut it. And I had to impress upon my employers that you guys are going to have to buy a bunch of equipment in order to really get this done. We're also going to have to pay for actors. We rented a house, a really nice house, and we were able to get all the things done in that 3 days. But if I hadn't taken that approach and was very adamant, because there was some pushback, but I was very adamant on making sure that they understood that we can't do it at the level that it needs to be done with the current equipment that we had. We had to buy a bunch of stuff. And to me, I'm not only doing it for the sake of that project, but also the longevity of the relationship with the client, because that's what business is, it's relationships. And I knew that if I just shot it with the equipment that we had, not just the camera, but a bunch of other stuff. If we shot it with the equipment that we had, we could have, yeah, we could have netted like an extra 15 to 20 grand. That's how much we spent to do the production. But, you know, at some point, somebody was going to see that, and they were going to ask this guy, how much did that cost you? And when he says that 40,000 number, they're going to say, well, man, I got a guy who could have done a way better job, and he would have done it for like 25 or even 30 or whatever, and you could have saved 10 grand. And that would have been a recurring conversation that kept on happening, to where eventually that guy's going to come to the conclusion, like, you know what, these guys screwed me. They took my money because I didn't know better. And I knew that that's what would happen because I've seen that happen before. And so I didn't want it to happen this time, especially with my name attached to it, with the company I'm working for and everything, and the production that I was running from soup to nuts, you know? So we spent like a good 20 grand, or we spent like 17 on the new camera, like the GH4, bought a few lenses, and this was like about maybe 7 or 8 months after it came out. And we bought some lights, we bought some flashes, we bought a bunch of stuff, like hella stuff, a lot of sound equipment. Then we rented the house, we paid actors, and we paid the actors a good wage too, like pretty decent wage, you know, for a small level production. But yeah, you know, like that's how that whole thing went down. And because I chose to do that, we were able to pick up a bunch of equipment on, you know, on the cost of a job. So if anybody came to us after that talking about doing a $40,000 or more production, we didn't have to go out and buy all that equipment that we just bought. And then on the flip side of it, that guy came back a couple years later and said, hey, we're ready for round 2. You know, what do you guys want to do? So it worked out, and it was well worth it. Like, when you see what the video looks like compared to what it may have looked like before, or what it was about to look like, night and day, completely different. So, and that's what I mean by pricing yourself out or overpricing yourself. Do not be in a situation where, like, let's say, you know, I know there's couples out there who they'll spend, you know, $5,000 and $7,000 on a wedding without even really thinking about it, just because they know, you know, from somebody's wedding years ago, or whatever, or whatever, you know, that that's how much they spent, and they spit out that number because that's the kind of production that they're looking for, not really understanding that not all production companies are equal. And there are a ton of people out there who will shoot it on, like, you know, their T3i or something like that, and get the wedding done. A T3i, a tripod, maybe a shoulder rig, and they're thinking like, man, I just cleaned up on this wedding, got $5 grand on my, you know, equipment that maybe cost like $600 total. Cut up a 10-minute highlight reel, and it was done. That was cool. I need to find more gigs like that. Guess what? You're not going to find more gigs like that, because when people watch that wedding video and they ask how much they spent, they're going to be like, dude, you got screwed. They got over on you. Or when that couple sees somebody else's video and they're like, damn, that video's hella clean. How much did you guys spend? And they say $2,000 or $2,500. Man, they are going to talk about you forever. Every time that wedding video pops up, they're going to say, yeah, video guy screwed us. He was way too pricey. We just didn't know. And that just cuts you off from so many more referrals and gigs. Bro, referrals. You know, you can have repeat business too. Not to say that you don't have it. You definitely have it. Like I was saying with that, you know, security company. But it's not the same as referrals. Like, referrals are opening you up to somebody's entire network. And you just have to keep it real with yourself in terms of your skill level, your capabilities. You know, I love it when clients send me what level they're going for, like what kind of production they're looking at. I love it when they send me that, because then I get to see what they think is good. And everybody's different. I've gotten referrals for, I mean, I've gotten you know, videos or sample videos of like what clients expect. I've gotten that, and seen it and almost thrown up because it's terrible. And then I've gotten some other guys where I'm like, wow, this is going to be a little bit challenging. We got to produce on a high level. But either way, I get to gauge where they're at, and I suggest doing that for all your clients. Like, know what kind of videos they think are good, and that way you can see if you are overpricing or underpricing yourself based on their expectations. But obviously, it's up to you. Whatever kind of money you want to get, then go ahead and get it. And if you know somebody has been paying too much for less, don't charge more than what they've been paying. And try to give them a deal and give them a better quality, because what that's going to do is solidify you every time they need video work. It won't go to anybody else. Guys, look, there's somebody who was talking about the restaurant business. I forgot, but it was a lecture I was watching, and this guy said that, okay, let's say a couple comes into your restaurant and they spend $40 to go eat, but they love the service, they love the cuisine. I mean, everything was good about your restaurant, and they come back once a month for the next 30 years. In the first year or in 1 year, that's $480 that you got out of that couple, right? And if you were to break it down, like let's say you wanted to make $100,000 in a year, well, guess what? You got to find 199 more couples, or no, maybe you have to find 39 more couples in order to get to that $100,000 a year that you want to make, and then boom, you're there. But that gives you that nice metric. But when you do that over 30 years, 400 or let's say $500 times 30 years, that's 15 grand that you just got. It's pretty good out of one couple, just because they love the service and the product that they got. The same kind of concept needs to be applied to your videography or photography business. Every client that you take on needs to be cared for with the utmost, concern. And it's got to be a genuine concern. And when you do that, when you apply that to every client that you have, I mean, it just helps you to look at this thing differently, and you begin to get recurring work and referrals, and your business starts to grow without having to do extra marketing for it. And this is huge. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today. This is the Biz Dev channel. If you want to see our pretty stuff, go follow our other channel, Caravan Film Crews. Take a look at the description. We got a bunch of social media accounts and links to follow and stuff like that. But yeah, hit me up anytime. Call, text, email, DM, tweet, whatever. Love to collab. Would love to see your feedback. Comment below. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. Hope this provided you some value, and I hope you have much success in your videography and photography business. Peace.